Yo, this is Fling with DFS Army, and this is your Week 14 cash lineup review. All right, so I ran out two cash lineups this week, and both of them smashed. It was a great week for cash over at DFS Army. And the reason I've been doing a little bit of split testing, and I really felt like you could cash either way this week with Josh Allen or Baker Mayfield. I liked them both. I felt like the floor was there for both players. Actually, Baker Mayfield's been averaging about 22 points per game, so he basically hit his average 6,400. I really liked him at that salary. Being able to fit one of Kamara or Saquon Barkley in the lineup, and also being able to fit Justin Jefferson in the lineup, who was in a really good spot. And that's exactly what I did with Gorendo and Charbonnet. Those were top plays for me. I believe I had them both as core plays. And, Charbonnet, 41 points, Gorendo, 26 points. Whenever we have extreme value chalk that hits the slate, I look to just eat it, specifically in cash games, and that's exactly what we did here with Charbonnet, who ended up being 66% owned. Same with Gorendo, and that helped put together the lineup pretty easily. Justin Jefferson, like I said, he was in a smash spot. I loved him. Is the top pay up wide receiver, and then it was 5K guys who were in decent matchups, and we've seen them be the focal point of the receiving game at the respective 5K salaries. That's Calvin Ridley, that's Jacoby Myers. So they were in both of my cash lineups, as you'll see when I get to the next one. And then Juwan Johnson. So he'd already seen an elevated amount of targets. He was seeing targets every week, but last week when Taysom Hill got hurt, he had, saw a bump in targets. So I was really comfortable playing him at 3,400. Thought he was underpriced. And, he did great, caught a touchdown, 15 points. Love the pay down at tight end. Love pay down at defense. And then did a little bit of a stack here, I guess, with the Saints D going against Drew Lock. I think they were 2,900. Drew Lock behind a bad offensive line. I thought this was a good spot, and I guess I actually had three Saints here. And Kamara obviously did not have a great game, but he was still highly owned and still got 12 points, which is pretty much as low as you're going to see from him. So it ended up working out 189 points with this cash lineup. The other one, obviously, since I paid up, which Josh Allen, I could not fit both, I couldn't fit like in either a Kamara and a Barkley with like a Justin Jefferson. So that was kind of the decision point with this lineup. If you pay up for Josh Allen, you're not going to be able to have the pay up at wide receiver if you're playing Barkley or Kamara. But it didn't matter. Same thing with Barkley. Now he was less owned, but the spot was too good. He actually got a ton of yards, got like 120 yards, just didn't get any receptions, no touchdowns. So, wasn't the best day from him, but certainly a better day than Kamara, 17 points. Um, and this lineup, same thing, Charbonnet and Gorendo. So I was focused on having both of those guys in my cash build. And then now it's going to be 5K wide receivers. I really felt Jennings was underpriced. So he was perfect for the Allen build that wasn't going to be playing Jefferson. So Myers, Ridley, and Jennings were my three wide receivers I ran out there. And Juwan Johnson, obviously, and Saints D. So this cash lineup smashed as well. Um, I think probably could have won some tournaments. In fact, I just did the review for the Millie Maker, and we looked at some of the other tournaments, some of the smaller field. I think 196 won 25K in a smaller field tournament. So this definitely should have been entered into that lineup and would have won 25K. I'll have to definitely be doing that for future reference. But yeah, great week for me in cash. We had some DFS Army wins as well, as you can see. We're going to get to the chalkboard and the cheat sheet here in a minute, but all the plays, more or less, that were listed on the cheat sheet minus Kate Otten, but I put my Sunday morning update. I thought he was a decent play as well. So Nimitz, Did well in cash. So did Grim. Aries, let's go. Another solid week on the cash cheat sheet. Good to see him doing well, not just in cash, but in the spy. Very solid week for him as well. But let's get into the chalkboard. You know, Sam Darnold, he ended up being the highest owned when it was all said and done. And but I like Baker a little bit more than Darnold, just because we've seen a little bit of a better floor with Baker. And they were all so close that I didn't really think ownership mattered at quarterback this week because, what's 9% compared to 7% for Baker? And obviously, you know, um, Allen wasn't on there, but I thought it was too good of a spot for Allen that, he would produce. And he certainly did 50 plus points, just bonkers. But yeah, Charbonnet, Kamara, Garendo, specifically Charbonnet and Kamara, their ownership was just too high to ignore. Um, but I thought if you were not going to play Kamara, Barkley was the guy because he just had a lot of paths to smashing in that game. Braylon Allen was the guy, and he could have played him, but I didn't think he needed him, not at the ownership that we saw from him. So it was really Garendo, Kamara, Charbonnet, and Barkley that we were seeing the most ownership on the chalkboard. And, that certainly factored into the decision to have all these guys on the cheat sheet. And then it was Jacoby Myers. It was a good spot for him. The offense just really slow start. He came around, but, I think he's a guy where it's going to be in cash consideration every week because he's really the wide receiver one in the offense. Now, Evans was getting a lot of ownership. He was an okay play. I like Jefferson better because I think Jefferson was just underpriced at 7,800. Their salary was too close. I just prefer Jefferson. London, getting a lot of ownership. Didn't love him as much as like Jennings and Ridley here. Also, Jerry Judy was cash viable. So, you know, pretty well spelled out for you. A lot of plays on the chalkboard, as DFS Army VIPs know every single week. And this is something you have access to as well as the cheat sheet. If you're a DFS Army VIP, which we're going to get into now, you can use, if you've never tried it out before, you want to try it out, you can use code FantasyFling for 10% off at VIP subscription. This gives you access to our optimizer, the chalkboards just we just saw, the research station, which shows all the projections. Of course, now that I click on it, it's not going to want to load. But yeah, and this is actually just updating to this just updated to the showdown. But on a main slate, you'll see all the players here, their DraftKings projections, FanDuel props, and everything else. So that is something that you get access to in addition to the cheat sheet and the Discord community. Code FantasyFling, 10% off a VIP subscription. So my three quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield. Obviously, you saw my two cash builds with Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen. These were the guys that I like the most. And obviously, they smashed for their salary. And I mean, smash isn't even a good enough word for Josh Allen. He obliterated everyone else on the slate. Best quarterback score ever. Fantasy. Nuts. And then, yeah, Saquon, Kamara. I thought Najee was viable, but Garendo and Charbonnet were really the guys that I was on. Garendo had identified him as a core. Charbonnet came on to later once we knew that Walker was going to be out. Too good of a spot. The salary was right. These guys we actually know are good, and we've seen it before in a starting role versus Braylon Allen. It was a little questionable. Liked him in tournaments, not in cash. Justin Jefferson, he was the top pay up option clearly. And then it was Myers, Jawan Jennings, and Ridley had identified our pay downs at tight end, Jawan Johnson over Calcaterra, but Calcaterra was in consideration as well. And then, yeah, we got the Saints D as the top pay down option, and the Titans at 2,800. So overall, really good cash sheet, chalkboard, the lineups. It was a good week. So we will obviously look to continue that heading into next week. So we'll see you next time for another week in review.